Right, so before we continue reflecting on FAB 2.0, I thought it'd be worth to take a deeper look into EVs, right, and the current state of Flesh and Blood. So what is an EV? An EV is the expected value of a box, okay? So in a perfect world, Outsiders has an EV of $100, meaning if I were to open a box of Outsiders, I would find $100 worth of cards. Simple fact, though, is this is a poor representation of the actual value of a box, okay? The average value of an Outsiders box is not $100. It's not even, say, $50, right? It is significantly lower due to all the different rarities and pull rates of different cards, as well as the value attributed to them by the player and community base of Flesh and Blood. Now, in a perfect world, what you would want to see, obviously, is if I spent $100 on a product, my product would continue to be worth $100. Likewise, if we talk about TCGs, the mentality would be if person 1 buys a box and then person 2 buys a box, together, say, for Outsiders $85, they spent $170. Well, the value of their two boxes should amount to that $170, right? Person 1, their box might only be worth, say, $70, but then person 2 is $100. What we're seeing in Flesh and Blood at the moment isn't quite that, though, right? That would almost be acceptable. What we're seeing is person 1's box being maybe worth $20, and then person 2, their box then being worth $150. Meaning that what is the incentive for person 1 to bother opening a box? If boxes are skewed so heavily, then there is no incentive to risk it. You're just better off buying singles. And what factors into this most is the way at which boxes are being digested and then supplying the secondary market with cards, okay? So person 1, for instance, they buy one box, okay? They are just a casual person who wants to open one box of the set and enjoy the new cards. Well, person 2 is a little bit different. They know the realistic odds of pulling any given cards, so they buy 40 boxes. Okay, that seems a bit outlandish, but just bear with me, right? They buy 40 boxes, okay? So their expected value, or their average value, is now equivalent. Okay, they are able to hit this $100 value. But the poor person on the side here, who's only bought one box, well, they are very unfortunate, right? They get a $20 box. So their expected value is $100, but they have not been able to hit that. Now, this is where it gets bad. Person 1 has found a legendary. Yes. Person 2 has found several. Okay? They have hit all the odds, and they have found every legendary in the set. We'll say 3, right? They've found 3 legendary cards. Well, because they have opened in mass, because the amount they've spent is now evenly divided amongst all the cards they've opened, they are able to dictate that a legendary is no longer worth that of say, a box, right? A legendary is now worth whatever they decide in terms of how much people are willing to pay, okay? They are happy to take a loss on one of the legendaries and value it at $20, okay? They're happy to take a loss on another legendary and value it at $80. But then on the final legendary, they are selling it for, say, $1,000. Okay, again, this is an outlandish scenario, but I'm pretty sure it conveys the point I'm trying to make. So between their 3 legendaries, they have one valued at 20, one valued at 80, and one valued at 1,000. They have heavily skewed the market towards that one legendary. Okay, and they're completely fine with it because, again, they've been able to hit the expected value with their averages based on the fact that they've opened 40 boxes. Now, this person, although they've opened a legendary, their legendary is that $20 legendary. Okay, so their value, despite being this prospect that if you find a legendary, this is the big ticket item in Flesh and Blood, is not worth their initial investment into opening, right? The whole incentive behind opening a card game is the gambling rate, okay? Your ability to find a card that then salvages the cost. The closer the average is to the actual EV of the set, the happier people are, the more likely they are to open boxes. The issue with Flesh and Blood is finding a legendary, finding a cold foil card is not what it used to be. Meaning that going for, say, the accurate pull rates, right? So at the moment, a cold foil legendary is 1 in, I think it's 220 packs, right? So we'll call it 2 to 3 cases, okay? So you have to spend 2 to 3 cases in order to find your cold foil legendary, which is meant to be the value item. That means person 1 now doesn't buy one box, right? They understand the odds and they still want to spend a minimal amount. So they go for 2 to 3 cases, right? So in actuality, they're opening 8 to 12 boxes. Okay, so 8 to 12 boxes still to the other person's 40. They find their cold foil legendary. But guess what? So has Person 2 again. They have found as many cold foil legendaries as they could desire. They are able to then again split them up into the different values. Okay, they're happy to take a loss on one of them. They're happy to make a little bit less on another because the third cold foil is going to be valued higher due to its playability. Meaning, unless this first person, despite now playing the odds, they find a cold foil legendary. If they don't find legendary 3, they are now even worse off. Okay, right? They've invested considerably more into rolling dice, into playing the opener box game. And they have the simple fact is this is the mentality we're seeing. We went from people being incentivized to open 1 to 4 boxes to having to open 4 to say 12 in order to again hit that cold foil legendary, the big ticket item. But at the same time, a cold foil legendary is not worth what it used to be. Okay, even if you say on average a cold foil legendary is worth $200, how much has Person 1 spent looking for that cold foil legendary by playing the odds? Well, close to $1,000. Okay. So in their $1,000 spent, their cold foil legendary attributes to $200, right? 20% of that total, meaning every other card they pulled has to make up the remaining $800 or 80%. And the issue is again, the person who's opened 40, they're now able to dictate the market considerably more than this first person, right? They are able to look at all their Majestics, okay? They're able to say that, well, I've got a Codex of Frailty, right? We'll use that example again. So, because it is so designed, because I need to offset how much I've invested or how much I've spent in opening all the other Majestics, I'm going to say it's $50. Despite a Majestic on average being $5, right? So, the one Majestic is now 10 times the value of every other Majestic, simply because they have the luxury to be able to make up their expected value in this card. Okay, so this is the big issue plaguing Flesh and Blood at the moment, is the incentive to open cards has been decreased considerably. Okay, leading to the majority of people who actually do open and supply the secondary market doing so in mass. This then in turn allows them to take a bigger loss on certain cards while recouping their expected value or their desired value from other cards. Meaning that we are becoming more and more skewed, right? That even legendaries, even fables are not hitting the values that people would necessarily like to see, right? If I have all the legendaries in a set and one is only worth $50 and then the other is worth $1,000. Well, the simple mentality is finding a legendary alone is no longer good enough, because unless it's on this higher end, I don't care, because the effort and the financial value that it's taken to find this card in any given sense is no longer worth it. Yes, this means you have greater highs for anyone who is opening single boxes and does find this legendary card. But the issue is the lows are significantly worse, and it's starting to spiral. Okay, as the lows get worse and worse, as the incentive to open boxes is decreased more and more, well then this whole mentality, this whole ability to dictate based on what is playable rather than what is collectible is going to increase further and further, to the point where if a legendary doesn't see play, if a legendary isn't useful, whether or not it was hard to pull, whether or not it is 1 in 220 packs is irrelevant. The only thing that will matter is, again, the playability, because the people who are finding these legendaries, who are supplying the market, by and large, are those who are now opening enough boxes to offset their value to achieve the actual expected value of the boxes. So despite outsiders currently being $100 in the expected value, the only people actually accomplishing this average amount are those who are doing mass box openings, which is a negative thing overall for a collectible card game. Now, it's fantastic for a playable card game, right? Having cards dictated by what is playable is perfect. But at the same time, Flesh and Blood is meant to be a CCG. It is meant to be collectible. I'm meant to be able to find any legendary and be satisfied. And the simple fact is, the majority of cards, even Marvels, even Fables, are not holding value as they once did, right? The divide across the board, across all the different rarities, have caused certain cards to not appreciate in value as what they should, as what would be an incentive for a person to roll the dice, to play the odds, and open a single box of Flesh and Blood.